On this week's show, Georgia Southern's offensive coordinator Bob DeBesse and new defensive line coach Vic Cabral meet with the media, as well as head coach Chad Lunsford, talking not only about the coaches but also about the recruiting class in the early signing. We'll also talk Georgia Southern men's and women's basketball as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. Welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, this is usually the time of the year where we're struggling to find some stories, where we're struggling to, hope that the men or women's basketball teams are somewhere nearby so we can kind of go into where they are. And while the basketball teams are in action, there's plenty of football news going on out there, and we've mentioned before about the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, some coaching staffs filling out at Georgia Southern. We also have recruiting to talk about. We're going to begin with the interview that we all had to do with the media. We all had with both Coach Lunsford, and we also had Coach DeBesse, and then we also had Vic Cabral there, and then we had later on in the week Coach Lunsford and Coach Foster talking about recruiting. We'll begin with Coach Lunsford, how things are going, how his coaching staff is shaping up, and your thoughts on that.
Well, I think overall he's still in kind of a wait-and-see mode. He's in a bit of a weird spot, not only taking over mid-season, but not knowing exactly what the coaching staff was going to look like, having to really hit the gas because of this early signing period. So it's tough to tell what you're going to do. Do you see other schools signing 10 and 12 and 13 guys and try to match them by just getting numbers in? Do you wait for some guys to maybe hold off until February and really be sure of who you want to get your coaches in, see who they want? But overall, I think that Coach Lunsford did what he had to do, which was get a couple of people in the boat, all signed up, ready to go, and if nothing else, that at least leaves the door open and all those other possible commitments for later down the road. See that there are guys who are buying in and signing up already.
Seems like trusting the process is what he is preaching. He's saying we're going to take this slow, whether it was with hiring the offense and defensive coordinators, filling out the staff, going after recruiting. That seems to be his mantra so far. We had a chance to talk with him and catch up to speed on how things are going for Georgia Southern.
A couple of guys that we've hired recently, those are guys that I've worked with, and with Scott Sloan, Vic Cabral, and so know them an awful lot, and I know they're great fits at Georgia Southern. Another couple guys that I haven't worked with, but obviously going through an interview process and being very thorough about it, and then also reaching out, references, calling people that knew them. It was really good to be able to hear the things about these guys, and I'm very fired up about the fit here at Georgia Southern. The strength coach hire was very important to me. I think that's one of the most important hires that we made. And then the next one was the offensive coordinator. And so, I know there was a lot of anxious people out there to see which way we're going. And honestly, I was not going to be in a hurry about it. I know what the offense means to Georgia Southern football and what we do. And having an identity was very important to me, having a system in place, that fit our kids. And so I took my time on that. But to answer your question, Coach DeBesse was on my radar very early in this process, and I took my time with it. A couple interviews and, just making sure that it was right fit. And the great thing about Coach DeBesse, when he came in and interviewed, he showed the blue-collar work ethic that I think we need here, or I know we need here, and he showed that he has a system in place that fits our kids, and it's something that's going to be very successful for us as we go into the future. Coach DeBesse was a home run hire in my opinion.
Any new coaching hires on the horizon?
As of now, no, but what we're doing, Coach DeBesse, Coach Sloan obviously just got hired, and I want them to have a little bit of ownership in both sides of the ball as far as their staffs go. So still a little bit of an evaluation period right now, but as far as changes goes, that's going to be kind of down the road if we do anything.
Well, Coach Sloan is obviously staying with Appalachian State through their bowl game. I know the recruiting that he did for Appalachian State seems to be paying off for them, and hopefully that'll also pay off for Georgia Southern maybe in the later recruiting. But as for the offense coordinator, he is on campus. He is out there recruiting. Bob DeBesse comes in from New Mexico. Seems like a sharp guy when we had a chance to talk with him. Pretty innovative offense. Your thoughts on Coach DeBesse?
Well, he definitely talked a lot about, I think got a little more in detail than we saw the last time there was a coaching change about what exactly he intended on doing. And he seemed pretty cognizant of the fact that when you're talking about the Georgia Southern offense, you've really got to parse your words. It's almost lawyer speak. It's one thing to say option, it's another to say gun option, it's another to say triple option. But if you followed him throughout a very long and successful coaching career, he definitely does seem to have that Willie Fritz era style offense. That would be because he was Coach Fritz's offensive coordinator at Sam Houston State before going to New Mexico. So I think that he's of the mindset that it's worked in a lot of different places, and he's looking to continue it here. And I think that he mentioned the fact that because of Georgia Southern and its history, it's a place where he thinks that he's a good fit and that this can work again.
I believe it looks that way on paper, and I think he also mentioned adding some wrinkles or kind of tailoring it around the quarterbacks and the offense that they already have. We had a chance to talk with him. Here's what Coach DeBesse had to say.
It was a nice surprise, but it was a surprise. But that's typical in coaching too. I mean, when you look at all the stops that we've had, I think most coaches would tell you that, you know, we never dreamed that we'd be some of the places that we have been. We've loved every place that we've been. And I can tell you, as far as the coaching fraternity is concerned, Georgia Southern has a kind of a special reputation, just because kind of unique, great tradition, kind of a blue-collar, hard-nosed reputation, which I love. And so it was a real pleasant surprise when I was offered the job.
Coach, have you maintained a relationship with Coach Fritz? And if so, did you talk to him about this?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Coach Fritz is one of the most special guys that I've ever worked for. I absolutely love my time with him. And so obviously he and Susan were both great resources for us. And I did stay in contact with him, both you know, prior to and after accepting the job. And obviously they love this place. They absolutely love this place. And not just the job, but Statesboro and the people and the whole thing. So yes, I did stay in touch with Coach Fritz, and he was awesome. I'm confident that we'll find the pieces here within the program to be able to run what we run and do what we do. So, you know, it's triple option based. That's the foundation, is triple option, and that's where, and it really starts with the inside zone. It really starts with the predetermined give, but there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of window dressing, but it is triple option based, and we'll base out of the gun and out of the pistol, and it'll be run first, you know, hopefully the history has been, it's been fairly exciting and fairly explosive. And, you know, I think we'll find those guys here, you know, as well. We'll find the right fit, and, you know, for the, not just for the program, but for the offense.
And among the coaching hires, the first one was Vic Cabral. Came as no shock. We all know that Coach Cabral and Coach Lunsford are good friends. They've kept in touch. And when he got hired, I'm sure that was probably the first call, or one of the first calls he made.
Yeah, and you can double the wrestling memes now, I think, on Twitter and on Facebook. Coach Cabral definitely shares in that kind of fun atmosphere, and he also shares in another word that's been brought up again and again with the new coaching hires, and that's recruiting. He did a great job for Georgia Southern the first time around. He's done well since moving away from Statesboro, and hopefully he can bring that back. He's got a young defensive line to work with. Some changes will have to be made. Is Georgia Southern going to switch to the 3-4 from a 4-3? We'll get into that, I'm sure, later down the road. Maybe it'll have to wait till spring till we see some tape. But he's got his hands full, but luckily that was one of the youngest positions on the field, and certainly no lack of talent and people to work with there for Coach Cabral.
And we mentioned it, and let's get out there and hear from Coach Cabral about him joining Georgia Southern staff once again.
Well, we were in the middle of our season over at Sanford and preparing for the playoffs and getting ready. We were in the middle of a really good season over there, and I always try to keep tabs on everything that was going down here and try to keep up with all the games and everything, and kind of how the season unfolded. You know, didn't really know if Coach Lunsford was going to be able to have an opportunity to be the head coach here or not. And when the interim tag was dropped, you know, it was a really huge deal. I've been friends with him for a long, long time, and goes back, shoot, maybe when I was a player, when I was actually helping with the video side of things. And so I was really happy for him and his family, and also Eagle Nation, and for him to give me a call and offer me the opportunity to come back here really has been a dream come true. So fired up to be back.
What's Georgia Southern mean to you?
It's really blessed me with so many different things, and it's funny, you check back on old YouTube videos and you watch the old games, and you know, a couple weeks ago went to a wedding of TJ Rutledge, and it was just a bunch of old Georgia Southern folks, and it really means the world to me. I mean, I met my wife here. My first son was born here. Statesboro is a great community, a great town, and I really am excited to be back here. It really means the world to me, and really excited to get this thing going.
Tell me about what you think Chad's going to be like as a head coach, who's been your friend for a long time. How excited are you for him, and how do you think he's going to grow into this role?
I think he's a natural fit. He's high energy. He's passionate about the place, obviously. He's a great ball coach, great recruiter. He wears his emotions on his sleeve sometimes, which is good and bad, I think, as do I. But, you know, he loves the place, and I know the players respect him tremendously. He's going to do a great job, and we're all going to be there to support him and hopefully get Georgia Southern back to the prominence that we all know and understand needs to be at.
Hey, Miss Thompson, everything's fine. It's going to be no problem. I'll have you done in a few minutes.
My name is Paisley Nordhoff, part owner of Complete Car Care, and I want you to come see me.
Well, Mike, you mentioned Coach Cabral and his recruiting background. Lunsford has his recruiting background. We've just been told this week that Coach Foster is going to be the recruiting coordinator. As for recruiting, this is the first time they've had the early recruiting, the signing day, I guess, in December. We still have to wait for the February one to get all the recruits. How do you feel like Georgia Southern did? Were you surprised by anything overall?
Well, I think that of all the guys that you look out there and see the names that are linked to each school, who says they're going to come, who says it with a little more authority that they're going to come, always hard to tell. You never know for sure until that fax comes in. I think that when you look at it, a lot of Georgia Southern fans kind of antsy, a little bit on the fence. The team as a whole didn't sign nearly as many as an Appalachian State or a Georgia State. But also remember, Georgia Southern, only 8 seniors leaving, and there's more scholarships available than that. But you have to think that there are so few spots that they really have to fill in that 2 deep that maybe they can take their time a little bit, really wait and see, maybe wait on 1 or 2 guys that they really want, and they have the ability, because of all those returners, to wait a little longer to see who exactly they can get.
Not a lot of big names, big stars in this early recruiting period for Georgia Southern. I think that goes to what you mentioned about the fans being a little bit antsy. But do you feel like maybe there's some more to come, or do you feel like this is just a trend that Georgia Southern's going to go in and try to maybe get some kids that they feel like they can steal out there?
Well, when you look at the charts, there are some of the higher rated commitments or verbal commitments are still unsigned for Georgia Southern, so those ratings could go up a little bit. You also never know who some of these new coaches might bring with them. You mentioned Coach Sloan at Appalachian State. One of the things he's been best at is recruiting, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time that a coach ever switched schools and took a couple of recruits with him. Coach DeBesse, I know from talking a little bit this week, he's got a couple of guys that he was working on for New Mexico. If they don't mind coming east instead of west, maybe you get a few guys who are off the board or not even on the radar for Georgia Southern a month ago. So, you know, you'll just have to wait and see. I know people don't want to hear about it. They want to scrub out that 2 and 10. They want to get right back to work. But the calendar only moves so fast, and for right now, they just have to wait and see. And in the end, it's all going to come down to how well those guys develop, how well they're coached, as to what they can do on the field. The stars don't get you points.
No, this is true. Let's get out of here from the coaches as far as their thoughts on the recruiting class as of this moment.
Recruiting is always the lifeblood of what you need to be doing. but it's very important. I've been through several transitions here, and it was very important to me that we just didn't reach and grab, and we made sure that we took guys that would fit us. And the whole goal about today was putting a core in place. With 2 signing dates now, you know, you're able to go and be a little bit slower with it. I know a lot of, and I haven't looked at the other teams throughout the nation and whatnot, but I'm sure they may have signed more, and that's fine, but that was not the place we were at. We wanted to make sure that we got a good group of guys that would fit our schemes and make sure that they were the right people. Character, academics, athletic ability, all that stuff, I wanted to make sure that we were on point, because going through transitions before here, sometimes we've reached and grabbed, and then you end up with what kind of happened last year with a very small senior class because of attrition, because of things not working out. So we wanted to be very strategic in who we took today, and I think we addressed exactly what we wanted to do. And there's actually, you know, there may be 1 or 2 more that may show up in the next 2 days, but you know, this core group right here is a good start to our recruiting class, and we'll hit this thing hard in January and go finish it off strong.
We really didn't have a number. We said that we could sign, 3 quality guys. We're going to take 3 quality guys. We're just going to find the guys that want to be here and the guys that fit this program. So, we really didn't have a number. Like you say, going forward, hopefully we have at least 90% of our class. Signing day, we'd like to have at least, we'd like to sign at least 20, 22 kids overall. I think it was great, and Coach Lunsford always preached about finding kids who fits this program, finding high-character kids and, blue-collar kids. And, we didn't want to just go out here and rush and just get kids just to say we signed so many amount of kids. We want to make sure we get kids who fits this program, the character kids like I talked about earlier. And I think Coach Lunsford did a great job and the staff did a great job of identifying that. And I think we got some really good quality players.
You got to bring guys in and let the best players play as long as they're doing right on and off the field. But yes, I mean, we've got an experienced secondary, so we needed to make sure that we were bringing in some secondary guys that are young, so that if it does go that way, we're continuing to transition that way. And we signed a very young defensive line group last year. Okay, so obviously we will still want to sign some D linemen, but because we have such a young group, you don't have to sign as many. So it's just a lot of strategy to it, and I think we filled a lot of needs today.
And so the next signing day will be February 7th. Stay tuned for that one. We'll have plenty when it comes around. All right, before we go, basketball, the men are wrapping up their journey, I guess. Long, strange trip it's been for them. I know they got the flight delayed and bags and things canceled and had to shift things around. It's been kind of a mess, but they've still been able to pick up some big victories in the midst of this road swing. As for the women, they've been home, but things haven't gone too well for them.
Well, as for the ladies, definitely a struggle so far this year. Still just 3 wins on the season now, riding a pretty considerable losing streak into the holidays. And the main problem for them has been the offense. On any given night, they can never seem to depend on more than 1 or 2 girls to be able to have their shot working for them. I think at times that's causing them to press a little bit. It's letting other defenses key in on those 1 or 2 girls having a good night. That's leading to a lot of turnovers. And in the end of these games, it seems like they're never quite able to keep pace. A lot of games lately here where they've been competitive for a half and then faded off.
As for the guys, they've picked up a couple of wins in the midst of their 6-game road swing.
Yeah, a couple of really nice wins going to George Mason. Always a competitive team in a competitive conference. A tough road trip out to Bakersfield where they wanted some revenge. Some tough luck with the fouls, to put it charitably, but then they group it back together. They come back east. As you mentioned, all kinds of trouble, taking 2 different flights, having to bus in. I believe Coach Byington was just joking that he was glad that just their jerseys made it there on time, but they're able to pull it together for a win against Kennesaw State. And now another tough one to end this road trip, an old Southern Conference foe, East Tennessee State. A couple of very competitive games with some very good teams this year. It would be a great win to end the non-conference slate if Georgia Southern can pull that one off.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us. That'll wrap it up for this week. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you soon.